Hello everyone, this is Steve from stevezanella.com. How are you today? I wanted to talk a little bit about something that's been on my mind recently. It's been on my mind for a lot of different reasons. It's the idea of attachment, being attached to something, emotionally, physically, and how that plays into our issues with fear and anxiety and suffering as a whole. Attachment is one of those tricky topics because we talk so much and put so much value on hanging on to things and having pride in the things that we do and that we have. But when you really look at how you're attached to things, the attachment that you have is challenging because everything in the physical world is temporary. So the reality is, no matter what you attach yourself to, it is eventually going to go away. It is eventually going to die if it is a loved one or an animal. It is eventually going to break if it's an object, part of technology. You're going to at some point be separated from something that you are attached to currently, whether it be children who eventually grow up and move out of the house, whether it's a relationship that comes to an end, whether it's a friendship that dissolves over time and space develops between you and you're no longer friends. So when you have an attachment to those things that isn't healthy, you're going to generate a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and a lot of suffering. You get something, and then, especially for the anxious mind, you spend a lot of time worrying about losing it, about not having it. So the time that you have with it, you can't fully appreciate and enjoy because you're thinking about when that time might come to an end. And when I was young, I really struggled with the idea of attachment to people because I had this fear of death. My father was a police officer, and I understood that that was a very dangerous profession. So I always thought about death a lot, and I projected that fear onto other things. I grew up in the 80s, and there was, you know, the Cold War between the US and Russia, and there was always talk about nuclear war, and they released TV shows in the United States about, you know, a nuclear disaster, and there was all of this fear out there. And as a young person suffering from anxiety, I was afraid of death. I was so paralyzed by this fear. And the problem with that fear is that you can't tell someone they're not going to die. You can't say, oh, don't worry, that's not going to happen. A lot of the rationale when we have fear of something is that you're just kind of making it up in your head and it's not really going to happen. But oftentimes the fears that we cling on to are fears that are real, that could actually happen. So trying to just push it aside and say, well, that's not going to happen, or it's not going to happen for a very, very long time, that doesn't really help. Ironically, what I found that helps with attachment and having a healthy attachment is respecting the fact that it will someday come to an end. And that's a hard concept for most people to fully embrace until they've given it some time to settle in. Because no one wants to think about losing a loved one. No one wants to think about the fact that we are actually all going to die. But when you spend a little time with those feelings and looking at them in a healthy way, understanding that that is the nature of things and coming to terms with that, it's actually going to remove so much of that suffering because it's going to allow you to gain a new appreciation for the things that you have while you have them. So oftentimes when we pretend things don't come to an end, it can be even more painful or shocking when it does. Now, I'm not saying enter into a relationship expecting it to end. And I'm not saying, you know, don't create relationships with people because they're going to die someday, so what's the point? What I'm saying is it's about developing a healthy relationship so that you understand what's true and important to yourself, but you can honor and enjoy the time and the moments you have with these things and with these people while you have them. And by having a healthy appreciation for the fact that they will eventually end, it's going to allow you to open up and fully embrace those moments and not waste those moments worrying and creating suffering in your life over the fear of eventually being detached from those things. So that's what people talk about and what they mean when they talk about having a healthy attachment, healthy relationship with things. And you can struggle with these things, especially if you've lost things in your life, to, you know, either you cling on to things so hard, you know, that you smother them, or you go the exact opposite route and you don't attach to anything and you become cold and distant and you struggle with relationships with people. Both of those are unhealthy attachments, and they're going to create a lot of suffering for you. So this has been my thinking about attachments. I have 3 young children and I love them very much. But when you have an unhealthy attachment to even your children, you're going to suffer, because there's a certain level of risk involved in everything that we do in our existence. But there are also lessons and things that we have to learn through those struggles. You know, there's a term that they use now for parenting, helicopter parent, where you're kind of hovering over your child all the time, trying to protect them and keep them safe. And while this comes from a loving and caring place, the byproduct of parenting in that manner can oftentimes be that you don't allow your children to learn how to deal with a scraped knee, or how to develop the skills that allow them to get up once they've fallen down. And in essence, you're robbing your child of learning that ability, of becoming more self-sufficient. If you have a healthy attachment with your children, there's an understanding. The way I define my parenting with my children is this, is that my job as a parent is to prepare them for a time when they no longer need me. My job is to get them ready, and to do it in a loving and caring way. And I love my children immensely. But knowing that and having an understanding that what I'm doing is preparing them for a time where I'm not going to be with them all the time, or ever, because I'm mortal like everyone else. It allows me to fully appreciate the time that I have with them and understand and truly soak in those moments that I have with my children, because I have a healthy attachment to them. I'm not, you know, my complete identity hasn't become wrapped up in the fact that I'm a dad, because I am a dad, but I'm also a husband, but I'm also a writer, I'm also a designer, I'm also a creative. I'm all of these things. And I have to maintain a healthy balance in all of those, because if you get too attached and it becomes an unhealthy relationship, you're going to worry about losing it, and you're going to create more suffering in your life and more anxiety in your life. And I don't mean to oversimplify this, because it can be a very difficult process for people to understand. And in many ways, it's rejected initially, because there's this fear of, well, you have to do everything, you know, that means you don't love your children enough, or, you know, that means you're not as committed, or, you know, it's seen, when you have a healthy attachment, by many people that struggle with attachment, it's seen as a negative. You're seen as someone who doesn't love their kids enough, or, you know, doesn't love their things or appreciate the things that they have. But in truth, when you develop a healthy attachment to things, you appreciate them more, because you know that your time with them is fleeting. It's not always going to be there, and you don't take it for granted. So I just want to plant this seed in your head today. Think about the attachment that you have. The attachments to things, to objects, to people, to relationships. Are they healthy? Are they unhealthy? If they're unhealthy, what can you do to make them more healthy? How can you think about these relationships in a different way? And just start to entertain the idea of sitting with the fact that the reality is that everything is temporary. Start to open your heart to that idea, because it is the truth. It is the way of our physical reality. Nothing is permanent. Everything changes. Everything is temporary. And when you sit and deal with those emotions and understand them, it's going to make for a healthier life and a healthier transition when things change. So that's my thoughts on attachment. Let me know what you think. Do you have a healthy attachment to the things in your life and the people in your life? I hope you do. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe. If you're watching this on Facebook, thank you for checking it out. Give it a like and a share. And I hope that you have an amazing day today. I'm going to stop and get a coffee because where I am, it's morning, and I always like to start my day with a cup of coffee. You know, it's the little practices, it's the little joys. I have a healthy attachment to coffee. All right, that's it for me. I hope you have an amazing day. Shoot me an email if you have any questions, steve@stevezanella.com. And until we talk again, I hope you have an amazing day.